Welcome to the Financial Intelligence session for today. So this is a session that we hold on a weekly basis via Zoom. And this is not about getting rich quick overnight, but instilling in you the skills, information, and education to build lifetime wealth that can be passed on to your children and grandchildren. I want to welcome every members of our group to this session today. If you're joining us for the first time, you're awesomely welcome as well. We encourage you to join each session every week and do watch our previous recordings, as each sessions are always as a powerful one. You cannot afford to miss, right? So make sure to invite your friends and families along next time. Before we dive in today's session, if you're yet to watch the session we had in the previous week, please try and watch that after the session today. So it's uploaded on YouTube on our channel. So if you search for D Howard on YouTube, that's the channel. So you can catch up on all the previous recordings, and then you can just digest the information. And it's actually easier as you go along, because now you actually have an understanding of what exactly we're actually talking about, right? So we're going to do a quick recap on what we discussed last week. In our previous session, we talked about why people choose job security over freedom. Sometimes, depending on how we are raised, some people are advised to get a safe and secure job, right? And while others, maybe a few others are advised to get educated and start their own business empire. So the reason for this depends on who you are getting your advice from. Some people seek job security, and that's all they can pass on to you because that's all they know, right? While some seek financial freedom, and because that's what they know, they will also pass on what they know onto you, right? So the primary reason many people seek job security is because that is what they are taught to seek at home and at school. We also talked about how many have been conditioned from their earliest days to think about job security rather than financial freedom or financial security, right? So the mind is the greatest gift of the creator to mankind only if you understand how it works and how to use it. This is obviously a topic of another session on our lifestyle transformation and coaching, which we usually have on Sundays. So, because most people learn little to nothing about money at home or at school, it is only natural that they hold on even more tightly to the idea of a job security instead of reaching for financial freedom. Unfortunately, the topic of money and financial literacy isn't in the school curriculum. We also talked about the difference between job security, financial security, and financial freedom. For example, job security, right? So these are people in the employee quadrant. People in this category have little to no knowledge about finances at all, and they have been trained for the left side of the quadrant at home and in school, and their mind has been prepared for the world of becoming an employee. We also talked about the three types of business systems. So we have three main types of business systems commonly used today. We have the traditional C type. This is where you develop your own system. We have the franchise. This is where you buy an existing system. And then we have the network marketing. This is where you buy into and become part of an existing system. So if you're yet to watch the previous session, I encourage you to watch it now. So the link will be shared below this video when it's uploaded on YouTube. You can also reach out to me on WhatsApp to request for a link of the previous video as well. So today we want to continue from where we left off last week. As a reminder, we're on a journey and it's important to pay attention to these things. The end goal is to help you to learn how you can become financially free, how you can convert cash or labor into assets that will in return put money back in your pocket even when you're sleeping. What I will be talking about in this series is derived from the book Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. So this is probably one of the best books out there about financial intelligence and financial literacy. And just a little disclaimer, as usual, I am not an affiliate of the author, and I'm only using what I've learned and put into practice in this book as a guide. And I'm not claiming to be a qualified teacher or associate of the author. However, after saying that, I recommend the book to anyone looking to learn more about financial intelligence. You cannot see money with your eyes. Money is an idea that is clearly seen in the mind. In life, we often make the wrong investments or make a wrong move on a business venture because it looks so enticing, but we fail to see with our mind rather than with our eyes. Not until after the whole deal has been finalized and we start to see some cracks in the wall and you guys, obviously, if you've been in the same boat, you actually know what I'm talking about, right? On average, 95% of people invest with their eyes and only 5% invest with their mind. For you to become a professional and successful business owner and an investor, you will need to start training your eyes to see only 5% and train your mind to see the remaining 95%. So let's take a look at the first step in how you can train your brain to see money. In order to train your brain to see money, you need a thorough understanding of financial literacy and how this is missed in the school curriculum. I have no idea at all, because usually things learned as a child sticks better in the brain than as an adult, right? But anyway, understanding financial literacy is the first step required on how to train your brain to see money instead of your eyes, right? And you also need to understand the words and the number systems of capitalism. So we talked about capitalism last week, so you can always refer to that video and understand what we mean by capitalism, right? But you need to understand the word and the number systems of capitalism if you want to start training your mind to see money. Just picture this way, that each quadrant represents a foreign language, okay? So you guys, as I join you today, you might not really be up to speed about what we mean by quadrants and stuff like that. But just be sure that the each quadrant represents a foreign language. Okay, so if you don't understand the words or numbers of capitalism, you simply don't understand that foreign language, and you will need to learn it. So very important. So the cash flow quadrant looks like different countries with different words and languages. So if you don't understand the words, you will need to understand the numbers. Okay, so if you don't understand the words, you probably will not understand the numbers as well. So it's very important that if you're like an employee, as an example, and you're trying to cross over to become a business owner, or you're trying to become an investor, it's like you're moving from one country to another. So you got to learn the language of an investor if you want to be a successful investor, right? Otherwise, if you go to a foreign country and you don't understand the language, you're probably going to struggle a lot, right? Or you're probably going to hate it anyway. So it is the same thing here. So if you don't understand the words, you will not understand the numbers as well. So very important. So for example, if an investor is asking, so what is my annual return on interest? You start to understand this person is an investor, right? Just by, the choosing words. So that's what we mean by their languages, because people speak different languages in different quadrants, and we already talked about this in the previous weeks as well. Well, is that all you need to know? Absolutely no. But you are beginning to learn and understand the language of an investor, right? Or say, like in the case of cryptocurrency, someone may say they're hodling. We call it hodling, right? But it's holding, but we call it hodling. Okay, so someone may say they're hodling their cryptos or bitcoins, right? This is also a language spoken by a cryptocurrency investor. But if you're not familiar with the language, it's gonna sound like jargons, right? So that's why if you're moving from one quadrant to the other, it's very important that you're ready to learn the words and the numbers, right? So the second step in training your brain to see money is by understanding real risk. You need to learn to recognize and understand what real risk is all about. This is very important. So remember how people on the left side think the right side is risky, right? You need to learn and understand what exactly real risk is. As the author would say, investing is not risky, being uneducated is risky. By the time we're done with these teachings, you will walk away a different person, and probably you will be on the verge of relocating from one country to another. And I mean relocating from one quadrant to another. If, for example, if you have been to a medical school and you spent years gaining experience, then being a doctor treating others is fine, right? Obviously. However, if you've never been to a med school, then you should leave treating others to someone else who knows what they're doing. Exactly the same thing goes with the world of investing, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, it's best for you to leave it for someone who's trained and qualified to do this stuff, right? But obviously, the end goal is for you to actually learn how to do this stuff as well. Reason people lose money or get their hands burnt is they always try to do what they have not been trained to do or have no knowledge about. They probably watch a video or see someone being successful doing a thing, right? And immediately they want to do the same. Getting a bad advice is risky. If you're a novice, then any advice is better than no advice, right? However, it's very risky if you can't tell the difference between a good and a bad advice. Most people aren't from a family, the people are not from a family with sound financial intelligence or even financial literacy background, right? As a result, many people struggle financially because all they know has been passed down onto them from their poor parents with their mindsets, right? With the kind of mindsets their parents have, they pass on the same mindset onto their kids as well. And if you're not smart, then your professional advisors can't tell you much because obviously they can only tell you what they know that your brain will take, right? However, if you're educated financially, then your professional advisors can provide you a high level financial advice. For example, your banker may tell you that your house you took out on a mortgage is an asset. Well, to an investor, it is an asset, but to someone who is like an homeowner, it isn't. It isn't until you actually pay off your mortgage on it. And even when you do, if the property is still taking money away from your pocket, such as a property taxi, then it's still a liability because it's not bringing money into your pocket, right? I hope you guys understand what I'm talking about. So remember, the definition of an asset is investment that brings money back into your pocket. So very important to understand that. If your banker told you that your house that you took out on a mortgage is an asset, well, they're also right in that sense because that is an asset to the bank. So they probably didn't tell you that it is an asset to the bank, but they say, "Oh, you just own yourself an asset, right?" But well, they're right to some essence because that is an asset to the bank. So they just didn't tell you the whole truth. That's the whole thing. Until you finish up paying them a mortgage payment, the house is still an asset owned by the lender. And many people can testify to this. So those who have had foreclosures on their mortgages, right? When you start to miss your payments, the lender will take back his asset from you. Then you will understand that the asset isn't yours but belongs to the lender. And what happens if you successfully pay off the mortgage after maybe 25 or 30 years? As long as the house is not bringing money back into your pocket, it's still a liability to you. Remember, we talked about being able to see money with your mind and not with your eyes, right? And remember that you need to know the real definitions of words and systems of numbers, the language spoken in each quadrant is very, very important. You got to understand the languages that have been spoken in each quadrant. So you should be able to distinguish between an asset and a liability by now because we've been into this program for a little while now. So you should be able to know the difference between an asset and a liability. And again, an asset brings money into your pocket, very simple. And liabilities take money away from your pocket. It's very, very simple. It's that simple. It's not complicated at all. So this is, yeah, so we're starting to get into some serious stuff right now, guys. So this is how your balance sheet would look when your house is on a mortgage. Okay, so pay attention, guys. So your mortgage house is a liability on your balance sheet, and it is an asset in your bank's, or maybe your lender's balance sheet, right? So stay with me as we will dive in deep further now, and now you can start to see how wealth is built and acquired. So if you look at it, image on the screen right now, you can see to you your mortgage, because you're paying, the money you're paying is coming out of your pocket, right? You have to make money in order for you to pay up your mortgage. So your mortgage on your balance sheet is a liability. It's sitting as a liability right now. But on your bank or your lender's balance sheet, it's sitting as an asset. For them, it's an asset, but for you, it's a liability until you pay up your mortgage after 25 or 30 years. So let's look at the definition of mortgage. What does mortgage exactly means? It is said that the origin of mortgage is a Latin word mortuus, which means dead. Wow. And also, Old French means dead pledge. So, mortgage in Old French means dead pledge. And according to the author, mortgage is an agreement until death, while finance means penalty. Always be careful borrowing money or taking finances. If you do this for your own personal gains, then make sure you aren't borrowing too much and keep it to the minimal. So make sure you're not taking out huge finances or loans for your own personal gains, because eventually it's going to become a debt onto you, right? So be careful borrowing money or taking finances, and make sure you keep it to the minimal. However, anytime you borrow a large amount, make sure someone else is paying for it. Very important, guys. For example, if you're taking out a large debt against a property, make sure someone else is paying for it. In order for you to survive financially, you need to understand facts, and numbers tells you the facts. And I'm going to say that again. In order for you to survive financially, you need to understand facts, and numbers tells you the facts. Okay. Some people would ask, is my savings an asset? So are your savings an asset? Well, your savings is an asset because it shows up as a liability on the bank's balance sheet, because the bank has to pay you interest on the savings, right? And it also costs them to ensure the safety of your money as well. Perhaps you can start to understand why money can be seen with the mind and not with the eyes, right? You can start to, if you start to think deeper right now, you can start scratching your head and start thinking, so how can I become a lender? How can I start getting acquiring assets, and start making income from these assets, right? So you can start to understand why money can be seen with the mind, and understand what your eyes is unable to see in the game of money. So we actually call this the game of money. Okay. By the way, the banks don't necessarily need your savings, and they can magnify money up to 10 times. And I'm going to give an example. If you put $100 in the bank, the bank can lend out $1,000. They obviously by law, right? And obviously depending on the central bank's reserve limits as well. So many factors can kick in. It could be less and it can even be more, right? So your $100 has now all of a sudden become $1,000, and they may pay a tiny fraction percentage of your savings back to you. Having savings with the bank can also form a good relationship with the bank, right? Obviously, and in some cases, you might want to go into the bank and borrow money, though the bank, remember, you have a savings in the bank, but some people, even though they have savings, they would go to the bank and they would still borrow money if they need to do something, right? Though the bank is paying you a fraction on your savings. So say, for example, on the savings you have with the bank, maybe you have $1,000 with the bank as a savings. On average, maybe they're paying you 0.8%, right, on your savings. But guess what? You're paying back a higher percentage on the money you borrow from the bank. So if you have $1,000 and maybe you need some money, you want to get a car or you want to get something else, right? And you decided to borrow money from the bank. You might be paying the bank 8.5%. on the loan that you took out from the bank, right? But remember, your savings, you're only getting 0.8. So you can start seeing some things here, guys. So why do people struggle financially? Unfortunately, for many, most people will be in debt when they leave college until the day they die. And this is actually a fact, guys. A lot of people, they would be in debt from the moment that they leave college until they die. And this happens, guys. This is real. This is real. So let's take a look at this and understand why many people struggle financially. I want you guys to be very open-minded right now, and you're gonna start seeing some things, and this is gonna start helping you to understand how you can manage your finances and how you can, start seeing money with your mind rather than seeing money with your eyes. Okay, the loans, the finances, the student loans, the mortgage debt that you owe others in an is also an asset, right? So whatever you owe, like say for example, your mortgage, your loans, your car loans, your maybe you have a business loan, maybe you have a student loan, your credit card debts, that you owe. This is an asset to the bank or to the lender. All of these things that you owe, it's an asset. This is an asset to somebody else, and they get an income in the form of interest. So like you're looking at on the screen right now, when you owe the bank or maybe a lender or even somebody else, you owe them, like maybe they lend you money for your mortgage or your loans or your car or your business and everything. It is an asset to them because it's putting money back into their pocket in the forms of interest, right? So they get the money back as interest, but it's income and asset to them. But to you, it is a liability. So you can see this person's income and their balance sheet, right? I know in some part of the world there's no such thing as student loans, right? But for those who live in the part of the world where student loans exist, then most people will be in debt when they leave college until the day they die. And for others in other parts of the world, most people will be in debt at some point, in their lives until the day they actually die. So this is why financial literacy is a crucial subject that should be an important one in the school curriculum. Again, if you look at this image on the screen right now, this is somebody else's statement. So what you're paying as your mortgage every month is an asset because it's bringing money back into their pocket. So what you're paying, the interest that you're paying on your loans, on your car loans, on your business loans or student loans, credit card debts, this is an income to somebody else in the form of an interest, right? I hope you guys understand that. So the money you could be saving in your asset column, remember I was talking about savings as well, right? And you can see how you get very, very little back. And then if you take money out and then you pay back a lot, right? So I'm still continuing on that. So the money you could be saving in your asset column is flowing out of your liability column in the form of interest payments on your mortgage. And then this ends up in your bank's asset column, right? So, and this is, and I'm going to explain this because this is how the cash flow pattern looks like. Your financial statement is at the top. So your mortgage or other loans is a liability because it's taking money away from you, right? Remember, a liability is anything that is taking money away from your pocket. That's a liability. So it says your mortgage and loans, it's a liability and it goes to your expenses, right? So you pay this from as an expense because every month you pay your mortgage. It is an expense, right? It is not an income because it's taking money away from your pocket. So that's an expense. So your mortgage or other loans or interest is an expense that you pay every month, right? It's just like you're going to flip the financial statement over. And then if you look below, you can actually see your bank and your lender's financial statement, right? You can see that your mortgage or other loans, it's actually an asset to the bank. And because it is an asset to the bank, it's bringing money into the bank's pocket. So it becomes an income for the bank as well. So I hope you guys understand what we're looking at right now. So what is a liability to you? It is an asset to another person. And what is an expenses to you? It is an income to your lender or your bank or whoever is lending you out the funds, right? People become poorer with more debts and they take upon themselves. as long as these debts, can be loans or mortgages or even not putting, as long as they're not putting money in their pocket, people become poorer, and the poorer you become as a person, the more liabilities you acquire and become indebted to many people or organizations, the more the poorer you become. So when you acquire more loans and it's like a liability, it's taking money away from your pocket. So the more you find yourself in this scenario, the more liabilities you acquire, and the more you become indebted to as many people as you can think of, or even like banks or organizations or lenders, the poorer you become, because it's taking more money away from your pocket. And on the flip side, you can become richer, if you have more people indebted to you. That's on the flip side, right? So the more people are indebted to you, the richer you become. This is the game of money, folks, and you gotta learn how to play this game in order to be successful at playing it. So very important, guys. So the more assets you can acquire and have, as many people pay money into your pocket, the richer you become, obviously, right? Just like in the bank's case. So this is why, we keep talking about the need to understand how to acquire assets, and then let it start bringing money back into your pocket. So this is what this session is all about. Even, for example, the money we spend is a debt. And you may ask how. Many currencies are instruments of debt, okay? In the past, the US dollars used to be backed by gold or with gold or silver, but now it is IOU. And that is being paid by the country's taxpayers. Now, this is what an average or middle class American financial statement looks like. And I like to say, not just an average American, but anyone who lives in this part of the world who lacks financial literacy and not financial intelligence. These are expenses mostly taken out by the means of loans, right? Like we are yet to even factor other expenses. This is just like expenses that people pay, maybe some in the form of loans that they've taken out. Like a mortgage is still like you borrowed money. Car loans is just still borrowed money. Like student loan, you borrow money. Line of credit, you borrow money, right? We are yet to factor in other expenses like their utilities, their mobile bills, car insurance, gas, and all those things, right? These are pretty much mandatory expenses that we're talking about, so we didn't even include those. So we only factors the ones like average people take out on loans, and which doesn't bring money back into their pocket. Their liabilities is taking away the income they make in form of their expenses. And for some, their expenses is even more than their income, and this leaves them with even more debt. So if I just go through this image on the screen right now and explain a little bit, when you make an income, like you can see the arrow started from the income, right? Or the line started from the income. So when you make an income, first you have to pay your mortgage. This is like we're looking at an average American financial statement right now. So you pay your mortgage, which is the liability. You pay your car loans, your credit card debts, your student loans, line of credit debts. You pay all of that, right? But all of those, it's coming out of your pocket in the form of expenses. So when you're making the money, you're paying back all your expenses. I mean, all the liabilities as you actually pay them back in the form of expenses. And we're looking at what people on average pay. Obviously, everybody pay their taxes, right? People pay their mortgage payments, their car payments, credit card payments, student loan payment, and line of credit. You can see what an average American financial statement looks like. Pay attention here, folks. This is where it gets even more interesting. So for you to understand the game, then you will need to see that what is showing as liabilities on someone else's balance sheet, it's actually showing as asset on another person's or organization's balance sheet, and the interest is putting money back in their pocket. Again, the image at the top is just the image that is from the previous slide. I just put it in here so it will make much sense. So you can see, like, you're making an income, like I already explained, you have to pay all your liabilities, and they come out in form of expenses, right? And then the financial statement below is someone else's financial statement, right? You can see that what you're paying as liabilities, like the mortgage is an asset to them, the car loans is an asset to them, the credit card debts that you owe is an asset to them, the student loans that you borrowed is an asset to them, the line of credit that you took out from them is an asset to them. And you can see once again this, they're getting money back through the form of interest, because you're paying interest on this loans and everything like that. And to them, everything becomes an asset and an income. So you can start to see how why people struggle financially. And what really sucks is that most people don't have anyone indebted to them, right? Most people in the world today, they have no assets. Very few people have a property that they can rent out, and maybe someone is indebted to them. Many few people have a car that they can rent out as well, so people can hire the car and pay them, right? So you can see that it really sucks because most people don't have anyone indebted to them, and they have no assets that put money back in their pocket, and they're always indebted to everyone else. Wow, this is an average people in the world today. This is how an average person in the world lives today. Now you gotta begin to wonder why people are so much into job security, hence they struggle financially, right? You get to start picturing, right? This is the need, like people struggle financially because when no one is indebted to them, they have no assets bringing money back into their pocket. Then obviously, in the end, they will be like inclined to have a job security, right? Which is again what has been what they've been told at home and in school as they're growing up in life. Okay, imagine you're someone who have many people indebted to you. Would you think of job securities, or would you trade your time for money? Just imagine, like, you're someone right now, you have so many people indebted to you. I mean, maybe you have lots of assets that's bringing money back into your pocket. Would you still trade your time for money? Of course, some people might work voluntarily, right? You might have like I always say in the previous sessions, you might be a business owner and decide to, you want to work in your own company. Maybe you want to be your own president, right? But you doing that voluntarily, not because it's mandatory, right? You don't have to. And they say an average American is just 3 paychecks away from bankruptcy. Okay, like so many people living in this part of the world, they are three on average, right? Not everybody. Okay, so an average American is just 3 paychecks. So I mean, after 3 months, they're done, right? So most people, they've only got savings for 3 months on average. Some people have no savings at all, right? So on average, an average American is just 3 paychecks away from bankruptcy. Most people go to school just to become a player in this game without clear understanding of the game. Remember, we're talking about the game of money. They don't even know the name of the game they're playing. And as a result, they are always indebted to others. And people seek to have a better life. Obviously, why do people work? Because people want to have a better life. Why do people take out mortgages? Because they want to have a better life. Why would someone take out a car loan? Because he or she wants to have a better life, right? So people seek to have a better life, but end up being run over by the game because they have little chances of success due to their lack of understanding of how the game of money is being played. Wow. And this is the reality of life, guys. It's not that people are doing this to hurt themselves or anything. It's because they lack understanding of how the game of life is being played. Is it a bad thing to take out a mortgage? No, because you have to live in the house, right? Is it a bad thing to take out a car loan on finance? No, because you got to drive a car. But would it be a nice thing for you to first build your asset column, so the money that you have to pay back, I mean, all these loans, your mortgage would be coming from your asset column as well. So say, for example, you have 5 houses, right? You can easily you can be comfortable and say, okay, I've got 5 houses, so I can take out the mortgage of myself now, and maybe I can start taking some money out of my income and my asset column and start paying back some of these loans, right, that I owe, things like that. It's not that it's bad for you to take out these things, but the crucial thing is you gotta learn how to build your asset column. And this is what this sessions is all about. Now you can see and understand that money is an idea clearly seen with the mind that you cannot see with your eyes. Okay, very important. Learning and understanding the game of money is important if you desire to become financially free. And it's even more important to start working on your core values. As mentioned in previous sessions, we talked about your core values. Like, people are different in their core, right? So you got to start working on your core values as well. You know who you need to become in order to move to the right side of the quadrant. This is another awesome session today, guys. So if you're yet to catch up on the previous sessions, please do. All videos are uploaded on YouTube on the Howard channel. So the logo looks like that. And you can just search for the name. You can watch the previous week videos as well. Because I know for some people right now, you're probably wondering, okay, so what's the left side and what's the right side of the quadrant? So the left side of the quadrant is the employee and the self-employed. Side of the quadrant. This is where people trade their time for money. Because if you're an employee, you're obviously trading your time for money. If you're a self-employed person, you're still trading your time for money. But when you move to the right side of the quadrant, then we start talking about business owners, which, for example, like McDonald's or KFC, Taco Bell, and stuff like that, don't necessarily have to be physically present, and their business is still running, and they're making billions, of dollars, right? So when we're talking about the left side of the quadrant, we're talking about the employee and the self-employed. And then when we're talking about the right side of the quadrant, we're talking about the business owners and the investors. And the investors are people who actually have money working for them. So they send their money on errand. So they have their money working for them. And those are the investors. So if you want to start thinking about, if you want to become financially free, then you're going to start thinking about how you can, start building your core values, start learning the languages that are spoken on the right side of the quadrant, because this is where you can start making use of OPE and OPM. And we already talked about that in previous sessions as well. Like, start making use of other people's energy or other people's time or other people's money. Like, when you take a loan out to get a mortgage and you're actually renting out a property, you're using other people's money, right? So that's an example. So once again, if you're yet to catch up on the previous sessions, please do. Like I said, all videos are uploaded on YouTube, so you're more than welcome to do that. And you can also reach out to me on WhatsApp. I would encourage you to invite others to join in as well. So if you have any questions, reach out to me on WhatsApp, ask your questions, or if you want the link to the videos or the YouTube channel or anything, you can always reach out to me. So what I think that really stands out today is the fact that what is sitting on your balance sheet right now as liabilities, they are actually an asset. So for example, right now, this is the way it works. So you should have a financial statement and you should have your balance sheet. Okay. You should have things like that. If you own a property, or okay, let's say, for example, if you own stocks or cryptos or whatever, right? If it's bringing money back into your pocket, it is an asset. If you own 5 houses and you can rent those houses out, your tenants, those houses is going to be liabilities on their financial statement, but to you, it's an asset. So this is why you got to understand all of these languages. You got to understand, go through your financial statement. So what are the liabilities that you can see today? And you probably feel like, oh, do I really need this right now? Some things that we don't need, but we still take a loan out, and every month we pay that out of our pocket. But maybe it's something you want to revisit and say, what, maybe I don't really need this right now, so why don't I get rid of this, and the money that I'm paying every month, why don't I start saving that, use whatever I get out of it to start building my asset column, right? So very important, guys. And like I always say, we're gonna be talking about different assets down the road. We're going to be talking about assets that you can invest in, things that you can do. Like I shared the wealth formula that I was able to gain from this experience, so I share that with people. So maybe that, I mean, if you're gonna be trading your time for money, but at the same time, you might go through the wealth formula and still eventually become wealthy, right? Even though you're trading your time for money. Remember, we always say that some people can actually be in all four quadrants. Okay, some people can be an employee and at the same time they can be self-employed. They can be a business owner and at the same time they can be an investor, right? So that's what the wealth formula is all about, and I'm gonna have a separate webinar for that because I know I've done that before, but I am gonna have a separate webinar for that as well. So this is gonna be it for this week, guys. I hope you guys understand what we have learned today so far. Once again, if you have any questions, reach out to me on WhatsApp. I'm gonna be happy to answer any questions that you have, guys. And if you have any questions as well right now, you can use the chat option. Let me know, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions, folks. I think it's important to watch today's session over again because today's session is going to help you to start understanding how you can use your mind, to see money rather than using your eyes to see money. And, you got to understand what it takes, what it takes to be a business owner, right? We already talked about this in the previous sessions anyway. So you got to understand what it takes. You got to understand, like, you're going to be a different person if you want to be a business owner. You're going to be a different person entirely if you're going to be an investor, right? Your language is going to change. So many things about you is going to change. Okay. So you got to understand all of these things. So, and like I always say, this is a journey. So we're on a journey where you can start acquiring assets and then start, making your assets to bring money back into your pocket, right? So it's not going to happen overnight. So, okay, I have a question here. So if someone gets a loan for a business to acquire an asset, is it an asset or liability? If you get a loan, your loan is always a liability. But this is how it works. So if you get a loan, so let me break it down. So if you get a loan to buy a house, which is worth $100,000, just as an example, right? Let's say on your loan, you're paying back, maybe you're paying back, let's say, I'm just gonna pick out random numbers. Because let's say you're paying back $500 every month, okay? But let's say from your property, you're making maybe $1,000, okay? This is where it cancels out, right? Because although it is a liability, but somebody else is paying for it, not you. You understand, right? It is a liability in your statement, but somebody else is paying for it, not you. The money is not coming out of your pocket. So I can go back to my slides and I like questions like this. So you get to understand. So I'm going to go back to my slides and I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay. So just hold on a second. You took out a mortgage. It is a liability. Okay. But remember, you're renting out this property, right? So in your income statement, you're making, so let's say your expenses for this mortgage is $500, okay? Just hypothetically, right? It's not gonna be exactly that, just a rough figures, okay? So now you can see it is a liability because this asset is owned by the bank, right? But it is an income to you because now you're making plus $500, right? Because so if you say, right? So now, yeah, good. So you understand, right? So now it is a liability to you because technically you don't own the property, right? The property is owned by the lender, but because you're not paying from your pocket, somebody else is paying for it, and that makes it an income. It is like I explained in that game that I played the other day. So if you want to stick around, I can always do that as well online. I can just log into this board game online, and I'm gonna show you some stuffs here, and it's gonna blow your mind away. So